Phoebe, you're being recorded, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I wasn't prepared for the impromptu lecture, but I'll give it my best shot. So a lot of the components are chapters. They're chapters in the dissertation, so that's new. That's something to think about. It will eventually be published, and you can purchase it as a book. So you're basically writing a book, which is bizarre in and of itself. So, think about it as a book. They're chapters. And not sections. I actually got pinged on that by Dr. Boyer. I said section somewhere where I should have said chapter. So they're chapters. A lot of them you will be familiar with. The introduction, the related work, conclusion. Those are all I think fairly standard. There's some subsections that are new that you probably wouldn't have experience with, like from writing a research journal or a conference paper. You have to talk, well, it depends on how detailed you get in your introductions, I suppose, but there's things like the broader impact of your work, what innovations your dissertation is making, things like that would go in the introduction. That's typically not as fleshed out in the introduction for a conference paper. But I think as far as that, I think a lot of the experience you get writing the qualifying exam prepares you for the related work, because it's basically setting you up to work on that chapter. So that's pretty helpful. Even if you don't necessarily do the same topic as your qualifying exam, I was able to reuse quite a good bit of things from that, because it still will be similar. And then the conclusion, I think, is pretty standard. As far as the rest, it can be there aren't necessarily a set number of chapters that there's like a minimum number of chapters you have, but up to you how you organize them and everything. I had 3 chapters, basically 3 different studies that I was presenting. A lot of different disciplines. The dissertation is very much, each chapter was a publication that the student had or is planning. So you can definitely approach it like that, but they have to all be tied together. And as part of your book, you're writing a book, so you have to tell a cohesive story. But as far as, I think you need a minimum of 3 body chapters. Like that's the only really requirement from the graduate school. You can also set it up really different depending on what you're interested or how you think it best is organized. So you could say have one chapter that describes all of your methods, another chapter that describes all of your results, and another one that describes your discussion or findings. So the organization is up to you, but those are sort of the high-level components. There can be some sort of defined sections within the chapter. So if you look at my draft so far, and then previous Berg members, they have sort of very clear-cut sort of introduction sections for each of the body chapters. They'll have things like the people who contributed to the work. So usually I'm talking about Dr. Miles and Dr. Locke, who advised me on the study design. I mentioned Hing and Shiva, who helped me run some of the studies. So things like that, and the collaborators, and then what you personally contributed to the chapter. So you can talk about like you designed the study and you did the data analysis, and then how it relates to your thesis. So I think the overall structure is very similar to a journal paper or a conference paper. There's just some nuances in some of the smaller sections that might be new to someone. That's my lecture.
Great. Yeah, a couple items to add to that is one, a dissertation is a single author piece of work. So a lot of you work on teams of people. That's why it's very important for you to, in the beginning of every chapter, explain what part your role is amongst what is naturally a collaborative effort. That's important too. But it's a single author piece of work, right? So you have, and that's why I often say, this is your work, this is your study, you need to own why this thing happens. At the beginning, we can provide some guidance, but over time, this should be yours, because you're that, you're not ghost authoring another dissertation for me. You are writing your own for yourself. So that's going to be an important part. All right, great answer. All right, with that one, we actually have time for a second one. So if you